Welcome to the Buttonless Podcast with Allison
and Heather, coming at you live from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas.
During this broadcast, we will delve into stories of jewelry past and present, looking to amuse, delight, and possibly disturb you.
We record live bi-weekly on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. Because we record live, you may occasionally hear us interact with our stream viewers.
Join the online conversation and tune in to any of our channels at 7:45 p.m. Central Time on Wednesdays.
Just a warning, sometimes we get a little spicy.
Please be aware that the following broadcast may contain mature content. Thank you for supporting small businesses,
and we hope you enjoy our show.
List. In this episode, we will be telling the tale of the affair of the diamond necklace, which is a scandal from the declining days of imperial France. So, the affair of the diamond necklace, also known as l'affaire du collier de la reine, or the affair of the Queen's necklace, was an incident from 1784 to 1785 at the court of King Louis XVI of France. So, it all started like this.
In 1772, Louis XV of France decided to make Madame du Barry, one of his mistresses, a special gift at the estimated cost of 2 million livres, which is approximately...
That's a lot of money.
It's approximately US $17.5 million today. He requested a diamond necklace that would surpass all others in grandeur. It took Parisian jewelers Charles-Auguste Baumer and Paul Bassange several years and a great deal of money, because not everything, to gather an appropriate set of diamonds. By the time the necklace was complete, they were on the verge of bankruptcy. In the meantime, while they're doing all this work at their own expense, Louis XV dies of smallpox.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And his grandson and successor banished Madame du Barry from the court. Womp womp.
So sad.
Yes. So with the death of Louis XV, Baumer and Bassange become desperate to sell the necklace, obviously, to recoup their costs, because they didn't take any upfront payment. And so now they've found all these diamonds for the necklace to end all necklaces. And
this is why you should always take at least partial payment in advance.
Yes. We could just take a lesson from this.
Yeah.
With the insanely high value of the necklace, the only feasible buyer is the French royal family.
But there's a problem. So first of all, let's talk about the necklace.
Yes.
According to historian Thomas Carlyle, the necklace consisted of a row of 17 glorious diamonds, almost as large as filberts, which are hazelnuts, yes. A 3-wreathed festoon and pendants enough, simple pear-shaped, multiple star-shaped, or clustering amorphous, to encircle around a very queen of diamonds. So... this is not a shy and retiring piece of jewelry.
No.
The jewelers...
It's not demure. It's not
demure.
Cutesy.
It's not my fault.
No.
Nope. So the jewelers really hoped that, because, again, these poor dudes have bankrupted themselves to create this necklace for a monarch who is now dead, for a woman who has been banished from court.
Banished.
And they've got this incredibly sparkly albatross that they now need to unload in order to, feed themselves. So, yes. The jewelers hoped that this product would be something that the new Queen of France, Marie Antoinette, who was renowned for her covetousness and her appreciation of fine jewels. So they were hoping that Marie Antoinette would buy, or the king would buy the necklace. So in 1778, Louis XVI, who was Louis V's grandson,
15th.
Yes. Offers the necklace to his wife, Marie Antoinette, as a present. She refuses. She reportedly stated, we have more need of 74s, which are battleships, than of necklaces. So she was basically at that point saying that the French Republic needed defense more than she needed baubles. After having vainly tried to place the necklace outside of France, the jewelers again in 1781 attempt to sell it to Marie Antoinette and the monarchy after the birth of the Dauphin, Louis Joseph, and the queen again refuses. So Marie Antoinette is like noping out on this necklace for, number one, the reason that she feels that the French Republic needs defense more than she needs baubles. Number two is that she reportedly had a patented dislike for Madame du Barry, for whom the necklace was originally created. And so it has also been said that she refused the necklace because it was created for du Barry and she didn't want any. But regardless, Marie Antoinette, which I find is interesting because this whole thing is linked to Marie Antoinette, and Marie Antoinette wanted nothing. She wanted nothing to do with this necklace. She was like, take this necklace and chuck it in the Seine. I never want to hear about it ever again. And yet her name and her ultimate fate is inextricably linked with this beautiful jewel that she didn't even want. So, sidebar. This affair, the affair of the necklace, has been the subject of numerous films and works of literature. According to Wikipedia, at least 21, including Ocean's 8. But I want to take a minute and sidebar to the sidebar. So, since we had an extra week on this podcast, because the internet was being so terrible last week, I actually was able to purchase and watch the 2001 film, The Affair of the Necklace, which is regarding this particular historical incident, starring Hilary Swank as Jeanne de la Motte de Valois, Adrian Brody as Monsieur de la Motte, hot, Jonathan Pryce as the Cardinal, Simon Baker as Berthaud de Viette, and Christopher Walken as Count Cagliostro. So, let's talk just a little bit about how this movie differs from the actual historical factoids of this incident. So, so historically, what is recorded is Jeanne de la Motte de Viette. Her family was financially precarious. Her father was a descendant of Henri de Valois and an illegitimate child of King Henri II. Her father was known as a drunkard, and they did not enjoy a pastoral existence. In the movie, Jeanne is ripped from an idyllic family life on a palatial estate. Her father is killed by royal guards of the French court because he is a rebel. And according to the screenplay, Jeanne did everything that she did to get back, quote unquote, the life she should have had. So, hi, Corvus. So, this is definitely a bit of retconning, a bit of casting Jeanne as the, maligned anti-heroine of the film who does all of these questionable things because she had this beautiful life and it was stolen from her. The film also highlights two characters who history mainly glosses over. Berthaud de Viette, who historically is really only referred to as a forger who was adept at replicating Marie Antoinette's hand and therefore wrote a lot of the correspondence letters. And we'll get back to the letters in a little bit. But in the movie, he is portrayed as not only Jeanne's lover, but also her love, like the love of her life. And yeah, and I'm like, what did I write in my notes? So he's portrayed as Jeanne's love, and that does not go well for him in the movie or in reality. And then Count Alessandro Cagliostro, he was a medium, he was a psychic, quote unquote. You know, he was a prognosticator. And again, in history, he's kind of glossed over as he was kind of a part of this thing, but wasn't really a part of the inner circle. In the movie, that is portrayed as different. He's portrayed as using his purported mystic powers to bolster up Jeanne's plan and her credibility with Her Majesty, the Queen. So that was an interesting viewing for me of the movie, The Affair of the Necklace. Again, Adrian Brody, yes, please. But the historical facts and the actual facts and the fictional facts of the movie don't completely jive. So anyway, that's my sidebar to the sidebar. Now we're going to go on to Heather for
The Affair. So what really happened that we have historical documentation for is Jeanne de Valois Saint-Rémy, also known as Jeanne de la Motte, hatched a plan to use the necklace to gain wealth and possibly power and royal patronage. And this is pretty much the story that Allison just told you.
Yeah, but real instead of
yes, but you told
Hollywood.
this part too. So she was the descendant of an out-of-wedlock son of Henry II. And at that time, she was living on a small pension that had been granted to her by the king.
Not in a palatial estate.
No. So in March 1785, Jeanne becomes the mistress of the Cardinal de Rohan.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are cardinals even allowed to have mistresses?
No, they are not.
And yet.
Oh, they always did, almost.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they just weren't into mistresses.
What about popes?
Popes also were not allowed to have mistresses, but certainly did have lots of children anyway.
Wow, that's amazing. How did that happen?
Well, when a man and a woman don't follow all the rules, then sometimes...
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
like when
you're supposed to follow all the rules.
Like when they sleep together in like all of the holiness, and then they sleep in the same bed. And
there were so many holy kings in because yes,
and this was one more thing. I'm just gonna swipe it for a minute. In the movie, Jeanne did not have a sexual relationship with the Cardinal de Rohan. History says different.
I mean, I'm trying to picture Hilary Swank and Jonathan Pryce, and that's...
Yeah, I know. It didn't happen in the movie, but it did happen, apparently, in real life in 1785. So
the cardinal is out of favor with the queen for having spread rumors to her formidable mother, the Holy Roman Empress Maria Theresa. And the queen, the queen had also learned of a letter in which the cardinal wrote of Maria Theresa in a manner that the queen found offensive, which is not difficult because she really loved her mom. And sorry, there's a thing over here, so I'm trying to get it out of my face.
Blue Jay, you win.
Yes, there are a lot of people involved in this story. So, it was easy to get on the queen's bad side if you said anything bad about her mother, who certainly,
even though she didn't really seem to love her mother that much, she just defended her, like,
yes,
with the force of, like, a fiery,
it's
something.
not like she arrived in France with all these friends in France. She didn't know anybody, so the familiar is easy to want to defend, because also casting disparaging remarks against her mom is essentially disparaging her as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeanne de Motte, knowing how desperately the cardinal did want to return to the queen's favor, gained access to the court. She then returns to Rohan and convinces him that she had been received by the queen and enjoyed her favor.
Oh.
Rohan resolves to use Jeanne to regain the queen's goodwill. Jeanne assures the cardinal that she's making efforts on his behalf.
So, Heather.
Yes.
How do you think the cardinal's decision-making at this particular moment, like, how would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being great and 1 being you're screwed.
Well, I mean, considering that he's already begun by just bad-mouthing the Holy Roman Empress.
And the Holy Roman Empress, yes.
Yeah.
So where do we place him on the scale right now?
Yeah, definitely not even in view of the scale at this point.
So he's like a -1?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Oh, wait, bug.
So, now now the really crazy stuff starts, and y'all are going to be like, but wait, everything that happened up until now is crazy, but just you wait. So, the cardinal and the queen begin to correspond with Jeanne as the go-between. So, there's no postal service at this point. So Jeanne is literally carrying letters from the cardinal to the queen and carrying letters from the queen to the cardinal. As this correspondence goes on, the tone of the letters becomes very warm, if you know what I mean. So the cardinal, convinced that Marie Antoinette was in love with him because of the warm tone of her letters, became enamored with her, naturally.
Meanwhile, his mistress is still taking letters between.
Yeah. So more about the letters later, but I think you can probably see where this is going. So the cardinal begs Jeanne to arrange a secret nighttime meeting with the queen on his behalf. And this is August 1784. And the meeting is to happen in the gardens of the Palace of Versailles. The cardinal meets with a woman whom he believes to the bottom of his heart to be Marie Antoinette. Hey, Heather.
Yes, Allison.
Who was in the garden with the cardinal?
Well, I bet that our audience may already have guessed that perhaps it was not actually the Queen Marie Antoinette. What? I know. But try and maintain your composure while I tell you that the woman was actually a prostitute.
Oh.
Nicole Legay d'Oliva. And
oh my goodness.
Yes, Jeanne had hired her because of her resemblance to the queen. Rohan, because apparently he's got the old eyes. And also it's dark.
It's dark. Well, and in the movie they also did portray her as appearing veiled.
Well, that makes
that
sense.
May or may not be historically accurate, but that was how they did it in the movie.
So he offers his new paramour a rose, and in her role as the queen, she promises him that she would forget their past disagreements. Yes.
So now, Jeanne is really getting going.
Jeanne takes advantage. Now she takes advantage.
Only now,
Only
not
now.
before. Yeah.
Of the cardinal's faith in her by borrowing large sums of money from him, telling him that they were for the queen's charity work. And again, he's still desperate to get on her good side. He's enamored of her. Of course he's going to do these things. And with that money, Jeanne makes her way into respectable society, continuing to openly boast about her mythical relationship with the queen.
Her bestie, duh.
BFF.
Totally.
Not Jeanne de Barry. That's...
What? No?
No, that's not her last name. De la Motte.
Jeanne de Rohan. Sorry, I will type that.
It's you now.
I know,
Oh.
but I'm typing.
Okay.
So, back to the jewelers. The poor jewelers who now have bleeding ulcers and high blood pressure and are on the verge of ruin because they spent all their money on this necklace. So back to Bomer and Bassange. So these stellar and astute judges of character. I mean, they're just impeccable. They decide that now that Jeanne is in society, she's openly boasting about her relationship with the queen. They decide that they're going to use Jeanne to sell their necklace, which they're still sitting on. And at this point, like, I don't know how many years it is, but they've been sitting on this poor thing for a long time. Like, it was commissioned
In 1772.
in 1772 for Madame du Barry. Like, Louis the 15th has died, du Barry's banished. They're stuck with this necklace, and now it's been twice that they presented it to Marie Antoinette. She's refused. Like, these dudes are desperate at this point. So they decide that they are going to use Jeanne to sell their necklace. At first, she refused a commission, a very generous commission, but then, she changed her mind and accepted it. Shocking. So now, okay.
That sounds calculated.
Yeah. So now it's on Jeanne. Like, she's now the one who's tasked with selling this necklace, and this whole thing is kind of hinging her financial future. So, Jeanne goes into action, and she convinces the cardinal that she has been authorized to act as an agent for Her Majesty Queen Marie Antoinette. And it turns out, shocker, is everybody ready?
Sit down
Yeah.
for this one.
So the warm exchange of letters between the Queen and the Cardinal, when Rohan thought he was receiving replies from Her Majesty, all of these replies were fraudulently written by Jeanne or her husband. Oh yeah! Did we mention that Jeanne's been married this whole time?
I am shocked.
Shocked and appalled
Yes.
that there is gambling in this establishment?
Dismayed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the whole exchange of letters between the Queen and the Cardinal was fraudulent on the behalf of the Queen's side, which was actually written by Jeanne and also by her husband. And yet, this still continues because Jeanne convinces the Cardinal that she's an authorized agent of Her Majesty, and she, pretending to be the Queen, sends several letters to the Cardinal, including an order to buy the necklace. Now, here's a thing that's going to come and bite Jeanne in the ass later. So all of the letters were signed Marie Antoinette de France. However, at that time, royalty did not sign with their titles, only with their given names.
At least in France.
Yes. So she screwed that up, but it still worked for her for a hot minute. But then we continue with the story.
So on January 21st, 1785, Jeanne tells the cardinal that Marie Antoinette wants to buy the necklace, but due to her already well-earned reputation for overspending, the queen wishes the cardinal to act as a secret intermediary.
So secret.
Rohan negotiates the purchase of the necklace for 2 million livres.
That's a
So,
lot.
yeah, I mean, they're probably still losing a little money on it considering how long it's been.
Inflation, yeah.
But it's to be paid in installments, and they're also allowing for that. He claims to have the queen's authorization for the purchase, and shows the jewelers the conditions of the bargain in the queen's handwriting. Rohan took the necklace to Jeanne's house, where a man, whom Rohan believed to be a valet of the queen, came to fetch it. A man in Jeanne's house. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the diamond necklace was promptly picked apart, and the gems were immediately sold on the black markets of Paris and London by Madame de la Motte, Jeanne. When the time came to pay, Jeanne presents the cardinal's notes, but they prove insufficient. I know. Boehmer complains to the queen, who insists to him that she had neither ordered nor received the necklace, which is entirely true. She had the story of the negotiations repeated for her, and by August, they began making arrests, following which the scandal broke loose.
The scandal. So, the main controversy surrounding the culmination of the event is the arrest of the cardinal in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles.
I mean, if you're going to be arrested in the Hall of Mirrors. That's what I have to say about that.
Yes. And also the trial that declared him innocent and Jeanne de la Motte Valois and her accomplices guilty. So, on 15 August 1785, the cardinal was in the Hall of Mirrors and taken before the king, the queen, the minister of the court, and the keeper of the seals, because, you know, they apparently really wanted the intimidation factor to happen there.
Yes.
And it was demanded that he explain himself. Rohan produced a letter signed Marie Antoinette de France, and since royalty at that time in France signed with only their baptismal name, at this point the cardinal was pretty screwed. So now the dominoes start to fall.
Rohan is arrested and taken to the Bastille. On the way, he sent home a note ordering the destruction of his correspondence.
What?
Yes. I mean, he's already proven himself to be a sucker, and he doesn't want any more evidence of that getting out. And 3 days later, Jeanne is arrested, though the cardinal's note gave her a chance to destroy her own papers as well. The police arrest the prostitute, Nicole Leguy, as well as Reto de Viette, who convinced her in the acquittal of the cardinal in May 1786. Jeanne de la Motte was condemned to whipping, branding with the V, which stood for voleuse, thief, on each of her shoulders.
Another question.
Yes.
Why not her ass cheek?
Because it needed to be visible.
Fair.
And they did actually let them have clothes. And she was sent to life imprisonment in the prostitutes' prison at the Pitié-Salpêtrière, which was originally a hospital and asylum, and then it was turned into also a prison, women's prison specifically. Mostly prostitutes, you didn't have highborn ladies there, which she kind of was, so that was extra punishment for her. And fun fact, the Pitié-Salpêtrière is now actually a teaching hospital for the think it's the Sorbonne. Pretty sure it's the Sorbonne. In June the following year, she escaped the prison by being disguised as a boy. And meanwhile, her husband was tried in absentia, because why not run?
Right.
And condemned to be a galley slave. The forger Viette was banished.
That was also in the movie. He was banished.
That made the event a matter of public interest rather than being handled quietly and privately, because this was very embarrassing to most people involved. Public opinion was much excited by the trial, which found Marie Antoinette blameless in the matter, because she was. I mean,
She literally was. Like, she did a lot of questionable stuff during her time as Queen of France, but she
nothing
was
with this necklace.
She was literally blameless in anything to do with this necklace, even though it is inextricably linked with her name for all eternity.
So, Marie Antoinette, blameless. Rohan, innocent dupe.
AKA dumbass.
Yeah. And both the de la Mottes were deceiving, the pair were deceiving both the queen and the cardinal for their own ends. So they were definitely the villains of the story.
Villains. Despite findings to the contrary, however, many people in France persisted in their belief that the queen was guilty of manipulating Jeanne to satisfy the queen's hatred of the Cardinal de Rohan, when in fact the very opposite was the truth. But at this point, the people of France were very discontent. They were very upset with the monarchy. They were looking for reasons to.
This is almost exactly 3 years before the revolution.
Yeah.
Revolution.
So this whole affair de Collier led to a huge decline in the queen's popularity, which was already, like, her reputation was already tarnished by the perception of her as an unaware aristocrat spending the money of the Republic of France for her own desires, trinkets, balls, jewels, food, and basically sucking the Republic dry for her own sake. So this particular affair was a very kind of tabloid way for the revolutionaries to put a spin on this about, like, here, this is Marie Antoinette and this is why she's bad for the Republic. So again, this affair led to a huge decline in her popularity, which again wasn't super great to begin with, and it really fixated an image of her on the public as a manipulative spendthrift who is more interested in vanity and her own gratification than the welfare of her people.
And there were lasting consequences for a lot of people here. So the affair of the diamond necklace was important in discrediting the entire Bourbon monarchy in the eyes of the French people 4 years before the French Revolution, or 3 years. It started 4 years, but they didn't know about it then. Mm-hmm. Marie Antoinette became even more unpopular, and malicious gossip about her made her a greater liability to her husband, so it drove a wedge between them. I mean, it's not like they were a big love match, but, you know, because royalty didn't get that at that point. They'd never even met before they got married, as usual. After the affair broke out to the general public, there was an increase in literature defaming the queen. Her unpopularity was so great after the diamond necklace affair that it could no longer be ignored by either the queen or the government. Her appearances in public all but ceased. as she was associated with the scandal and already considered by some to be an enemy of the French people, because remember, Marie Antoinette, not French, her reputation was irreversibly destroyed.
And she never recovered. Her reputation never recovered from this incident. Her early history of excessive spending had already blemished her popularity. So, like, she started off on the wrong foot.
She was a teenager.
Yeah. And so,
and made some choices that
because teenagers, like, I'm sorry, but what teenager is actually equipped, especially a royal teenager at that time,
right?
Like, and a female royal teen, like, no one gave her the tools to be a good monarch. So she was the best queen that she could possibly be, and unfortunately for her, she existed in a time where that wasn't good enough, and there was a really, really dramatic way that was communicated. But so her reputation never recovered from the affair of the necklace, even though, once again, she had nothing to do with the necklace. Nothing at all. But yet she was painted with that brush. Her reputation never recovered. And then her early history, when she was a very young bride, of excessive spending, had already tarnished her popularity. And now the diamond necklace affair just kind of took public opinion and trebucheted it into near hatred for Marie Antoinette. Because according to what the public has seen, she appears to have plotted to misuse the Kingdom of France's depleting money to feather her own nest, to buy personal trinkets, to, elevate herself and her, her court to a higher status as far as fashion goes, while the kingdom is going bankrupt. So Marie Antoinette, unfortunately, was never able to shake off that idea that she had perpetrated an extravagant fraud for her own frivolous ends, again, despite the fact that she was not actually involved in the affair of the necklace at all, and in fact had refused the necklace multiple times and said that the Republic of France needs X more than I need a necklace. But that never made it to the people. So, small silver lining, short-lived, tiny silver lining. The affair of the necklace did prompt Louis XVI to become closer to his wife. And he was inclined to be more defensive, more responsive, more defensive of and more responsive to her before and during the revolution. But,
there's not really any coming back from that.
Yeah.
And hi, Doxy. Since the necklace was almost immediately disassembled by Jeanne and sold in pieces, like it went out the door and it was... The location of the specific diamonds is unknown, so they're everywhere and nowhere. Diamond sales were not regulated, or they weren't regulated tightly or loosely at that time, so there was no provenance of it, and of course they were selling them on the black market too, so there wouldn't have been anyway. So,
and also, per the ladies' notes, nor was the mail system.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of The Button List with Allison
and Heather. You can catch The Button List weekly on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube.
You can also watch our complimentary live tutorials every Wednesday and Friday at 6 p.m. Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and twitch.tv/Beading Dreams.